Alright, so bodywork now. Anything that has any damage, we're going to repair it, fill the holes. All the paint that's in good shape, we're going to go ahead and scrub it and Scotch-Brite it. Anything that is down to bare metal, of course, we're going to refinish with the etching primer. But mask it up really good. Make sure you spend extra time here. Prep is all of the build right here. So the etching primer is on. We'll let that sit for a day. And then, of course, base coat, clear coat. I don't have the paint code, but it's called Chrome Yellow. It comes from a 98 Mustang. That's the color that the car was painted. And of course, the engine bay being the focal point, that's the color of the car's going to be. More time you spend prepping, the better. Tape it, clean it, tape it again. All this here is refinished. We did it in satin black. Again, the engine is the focal point. I want the engine bay to look right. Alright, so I am going to take this JDM cluster out of here if anybody is interested. It does work. I see here the only thing that didn't work was the temp sensor, and that was the wire broken on the head, so we'll confirm it is 100% operating before I sell it. But I'm just not a big fan of the kilometers, not a big fan of the white gauges. That's my opinion. It is a very nice gauge cluster, very sought after. It's getting pretty rare, so it will be for sale. I am going to replace it with just an EX gauge cluster. Picked up a nice one on eBay. It isn't miles. I know when to shift, so I'm not too worried about the red line, but that one will be going in the car. Alright, so each part we're trying to clean up, sand it and paint it and do whatever we need to. And again, T-bracket, you're not really going to see it, but you see it kind of looks pretty dingy. So we're going to go ahead, give this a good pressure wash, clean it up, sand it, prep it, put some paint on it, make it look kind of like as nice as that right there. This was full of yellow paint, so cleaned this and polished it off with Scotch-Brite. Basically, it's kind of like a brushed finish. And then the AC lines here, this rubber coating, a trick for this, if you're running into it, I'll show you the before picture. It had paint on these two from it was previously yellow. This, I cleaned it off really good with lacquer thinner, let it dry real good. And then the rubber, I actually used dye. I used black sem dye, which is like an interior fabric dye. And it really freshens those up, because if you scrub too much on this, it is kind of like a rubber. So engine bay is going back together. It takes quite a while to put all the lines back, but same thing, cleaned up the lines. Not doing a wire tuck, but I'm doing what I would call a partial wire tuck, which is the wiring that goes up here. Basically reroute it down here, kind of like that's a headlight harness. We're going to probably put it in that channel somewhere. Everything's going back just the way it was. Fuel system is going to stay the same. It's going to have plenty of fuel. Obviously the charcoal canister, all the emission stuff will be staying in there. So update on the GripTech pulleys. We are moving forward. This is the drawing of the stepper pulley. We're doing the blower pulley too. This is going to be from GripTech. It's going to be proprietary LHT pulleys. It's going to be the size that we like based on testing that we've done without running into belt expansion problems. And obviously slippage shouldn't be an issue anymore with GripTech. We should have a prototype set here in about a week. So I think we're going to hold off putting the motor in so we can actually assemble the supercharger and put it on the motor and put it on a stand basically, so you can actually see it. We can double check it and do some more calculations, make sure everything is exactly how we want it. Definitely looks prettier. Did actually find a new boot. I thought it was discontinued. We did find that boot, so we put a new boot on it, a few little brackets, cleaned up, painted. So the ignition switch, we took it apart. This is the electrical portion of the switch. This is what the key actually turns this. These line up with these tabs right here for different, obviously the auxiliary, key on and start. This is where it's intercepted for the alarm. We're going to join that back together properly. Sometimes this can cause resistance, and often it will cause arcing inside the ignition switch, which kind of looks like what happened on this one. So we clean these tabs. We're going to put some fresh dielectric grease on here, put it back together, and this should be good to go. So keep in mind, if you run into this issue, it's a fairly easy fix. So I did a dedicated video. Hopefully you can make it. We are doing the Dragon trip this year. A little bit different. We're going to be meeting with the guys from Classic Hondas on the Dragon. So you can check out their Facebook page. That's a good group of guys that's been meeting up there for, I think, 8 years now. 100 plus cars that are going to be there. Plus, I'm guessing we'll bring probably 50 of our own, some of the LHT followers. So it's going to be a great time. to meet some Honda guys. And this isn't a parking lot car show. This is a meet. This is a get together, bring your car, drive your car. Be a perfect time to see some of the scenic roads and meet some Honda guys up there. So if you can make it, October 17th, 11 a.m. is when we're going to meet. Make a mini vacation out of it. Bring your wife, bring your buddy, bring his buddy, meet some guys with the same passion as you. We'll see you then. I'm going to get back to the EG. This we're gonna sell. I'm not keeping this. I am gonna change it. I've got some coilovers coming, which you guys are gonna be shocked when you see what I have. It's gonna be actually delivered today. This is gonna stay with the car. The new shock goes in here. Break this loose with a 14. Sometimes you have to spread that a little bit, but it should slide right off. We're gonna go ahead and refinish these parts, ready for our brand spanking new coilovers. So these are for sale. Message me. Let me know what you want to pay for these. I'm going to verify the back spring, but I believe it is a 12K on the rear. So good drag racing stuff right here. All right, so the mounts we are going with are factory OEM mounts, apart from the two front mounts right here. I'll talk about those in a second. But these mounts, I still prefer the factory ones unless we're making a ton of power. This one is a transmission mount. It's a new mount I had. Went ahead and just cleaned it up. It's been sitting on the shelf for a long time. And then this is the driver's side mount, the aluminum mount. This is just kind of like a flat silver. I did refinish it. Some people polish this, some people paint it black. I wanted it to look kind of factory. So easy way to finish this is Scotch-Brite. Do the Scotch-Brite all one direction to get a brush finish. Don't crisscross it because it will get kind of funky looking. Keep the brush the same direction, and then I used a satin clear. So it looks that bright aluminum, but it's not over polished. Doesn't look, you know, like too custom, because I want it to look kind of stock. Back mount, I had a brand new one in stock, so I just replaced it. So the mount orientation sits like this. The engine is sitting here and it torques back and forth. Obviously under acceleration and deceleration it will actually move. The back mount puts most of that stability from rocking, and then of course the two front mounts are also known as torque mounts. They sit in this direction right here. Now, they're discontinued from Honda. Everybody sells these. Most of the aftermarket ones are a little tighter now, a little bit stiffer. I did buy these from the parts store. They're about 15 bucks each. You can buy them off eBay. It seems like everybody sells them. There's a million variations of these. But once you install it, as long as the engine is in the relaxed position, these will, they're not going to transmit a lot of vibration, because I'll show you that in a second. This bolt right here, this is the piece that goes into the compressor AC bracket, and there's one obviously similar on the other side. It sits like this, and the engine mount goes through here. You'll notice the hole is quite a bit larger. A lot of people didn't really understand what this was about. They just thought it was kind of a screw up by Honda. Well, that is so that you can position this mount and center the mount in a relaxed position. I'll talk about this relaxed position. We don't want the engine to be under strain one way or another, under, you know, any kind of side load before you tighten mounts. You want everything relaxed. This will kind of line up. You'll put this, kind of line it up in the middle before you cinch it down. You're going to put the washer on here that has flat spots that lines up with this bolt here. So you want the engine sitting there. I tend to put them on jack stands, make sure it's not under load. This fits on here. It has two flat spots like I talked about. It does line up on there. It doesn't twist. Make sure you put that on there and torque the nut down. But the main thing here is make sure the engine is relaxed. Keep pushing this word. That way this isn't pushed one way or another. It's not under load. It'll help from transmitting the vibration, especially on these aftermarket ones. You see how much that moves right there. You want that kind of centered before you cinch that nut down, and it will definitely make a big difference. It's not going to transmit the vibration from those slightly stiffer mounts that you're buying. Some of the urethane mounts, it's even more important, but again, they even have the part numbers on, and it looks the same stuff to me. It looks the same as eBay stuff and the parts store. It was just convenient to call and order them and get them shipped to us. So there you go. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. So everything is in good shape. The rubber bushings are good. This is the main bushing right here I wanted to look at. So we're gonna pull that apart, clean it, and paint it. Same with this upper mount right here. I don't know if you can see that, but again, the rubber looks good. Old trick on these that we used to do is to shim this out with washers. That way you get to use the factory arm, which is also preferred. The bushings are better, but by shimming this out, we're bringing this out. We can fix the camber, which back in the day, we wanted our wheels like this. The old school guys want their tire to be on the ground. Now it seems like the trend is to put it on a 45-degree angle so it doesn't touch the ground. I don't know, I can't explain it, I'm too old for that. So a lot of this stuff was dry. You heard the squeaking driving it. Well, the thing squeaked from everywhere. These are the bushings for the sway bar, and as you see, they were running here. They're dry as can be. This is an ITR rear sway bar, which is a fantastic bar, especially for this car. And you can see the bushings on the end. I got to try and look into these. These were not installed correctly. There's supposed to be like a metal sleeve in there so that when it tightens down, it bottoms out onto this part right here. These were rock solid. They wouldn't move at all. That's some of the squeaking. This tie bar is just basically a stiffening bar, but you can see how it's out of whack. This is how it was bolted. You see one bolt is up, one is flat. So it was putting the suspension or the rear in a bind. It didn't really do a whole lot, but I think between this bushing being shot and dry and the sway bar bushing right here being completely dry, I think some of our squeaking from the back goes down to this. I want to take this apart. I'm going to refinish the brake. These are not bad rotors, but I've actually plans of putting new rotors, new pads, rebuild the calipers, clean all this area up, make it look a little bit nicer. These bushings here, if anybody knows where I can get them from, this is an ITR rear sway bar. These bushings here, I just called Acura and they don't seem to know where they can find them. And on eBay, everybody sells these. Nobody sells that. Worst case, I might have to get a brass bushing made for that. I don't really want to because it's a big pain in the rear. Lower control arm right here is in good shape. The bushings look good. I'm going to clean it up real good and just verify it. But again, that looks to be in good shape. So this part is mainly take it apart, clean it, put it back together, set it up, do something with the inside of this, probably pressure wash this, clean it, refinish it, make it look a little nicer. But I think we're in good shape. That's the only part I'm going to need for right now. If anybody knows where I can get it, it's for the end bar of the stabilizer, as Honda calls it. Super nice white CR in the shop today. Sticking to our EG build here. You guys seen us build enough S2000, so it's not in bad shape. It's just crusty looking. Looks like it's been in someone's front yard for a few months just hanging out. So my plan is strip this and refinish it, rebuild it. And the color I think we're gonna go with is silver. It's not too loud, but it doesn't disappear like black. If it was black behind a black wheel, you'd never see it. So I'm thinking silver just looks a nice clean OE finish. So I showed you a snippet of the axles earlier. These are new axles. The other ones, it was going to cost more money to rebuild and put new boots on. So we've got a nice shiny new pair. Suspension is up for sale. I don't know what it's worth. Give me make an offer. I used to remember it being about 800 bucks retail. This is the suspension I decided to go with. So crazy thing is, we're a dealer for a handful of suspension companies, including these guys. We used to use Teen a lot back in the day. So this is the suspension I used to use. My Integra Type R, a handful of cars I built back in the day. This was my suspension that I used. It was the first suspension company I became a dealer for. And I figured it's kind of period correct. It's obviously a lot better than what was on there. It's kind of a shame that the way they package it, everything bashed against each other and beat itself up. There's one of the adjusting knobs there. Who knows if it comes in. I don't think it does come in the tops. So somebody asked me about cleaning the block. What would you use? What products do you use? I tend to use Purple Power you can buy from Advanced Auto Parts. I don't run it full strength. I mix it 50-50. And what I would do is spray it on there. You saw me cleaning that mount and a few other things. Spray it on there. Let it sit for about a minute. You don't want to let it dry. You can use a stiff brush to kind of agitate it, and it helps break up any of the dirt, and it seems to go to work better. Then use a pressure washer. Once it's dry like this, what I like to do for aluminum, I don't like to paint my blocks. What I recommend is some Scotch-Brite right here. This is the slightly more aggressive stuff. There's a few different, obviously, textures. This is the more harsh. You want to cut through here. So I cut it into small pieces. These are from Harbor Freight, by the way. I would recommend these. These are terrific. I've gone through a handful of scissors over the years. We've tried cheap scissors, good scissors. These are 10 bucks. We use them for cutting cardboard, wire, Scotch-Brite. I mean, unbelievable. 10 bucks. This is just their tools are really getting good. I don't know if you use them, but I used to make fun of them. Now their stuff is impressive. So basically going to go with the aluminum and hit it with Scotch-Brite. I mean, it's kind of that time-consuming thing. I've done this lightly. I did the transmission more than anything, but I'll do this little spot right here. You cannot really mess it up. You're just going to use it to brighten it up. And remember, you've got more things in the motor getting, you know, you can have a header there. We've got our AC. You see, I've already cleaned up the AC bracket. So you don't want to spend too much time cleaning behind the AC bracket because it's going to be covered up, and the compressor is going to come out to about here. But just get in there. You know, it's kind of that, what we call TLC, and it's a little bit of elbow grease in there. But it takes a bit of time, but the more you do it, it kind of brightens it up and makes the whole thing look a little bit nicer. And again, it starts to break down as you use it. The stuff kind of gets soft, so you just have to keep spinning it. But take your time. It does make a pretty impressive difference. I'll do this spot right here for you, and I'll show you. It's not as imperative to do one direction. It's not like you're brushing it. This has a pretty harsh texture, so you can go in, you know, several different directions. It's not going to show. It's not going to look bad. But this is what I use to brighten my aluminum. Today's September the 3rd, September the 2nd, a good friend passed away. Good friend Steve McCleskey, a lot of people knew him. I used to tell people how brilliant this guy was, and I was lucky enough to call him a friend. We have worked in this shop together till 2, 3, 4 in the morning many times. He's fixed things that I've just lost it and can't figure it out. It's just to a point where you need a fresh set of eyes. He's wired up the first K-Sight. You heard the story. The first K-Sight, Steve and I sat on the curb at a hot import nights, and I had this vision, and I'd been trying to think of it for 2 years, and I couldn't put basically couldn't put it together financially, or I didn't have the ability. I said to Steve, hey, I'm thinking about putting a K-series motor in an Insight, but in typical LHT fashion, it has to work. What do you think? And his answer was, if you can put it in, I can wire it up. And that has always been kind of like the saying between us. And so I'm going to try and put a positive spin on it. It's super hard for me. The Civic behind me belongs to a good friend, Bert. I met Steve through Bert. Bert answered an ad in the newspaper for a part I was selling. He introduced me to Steve. Steve had a white 91 CRX SI at the time, and that was my favorite car. I had a green, Tahitian green CRX, and I always wanted a white one. Steve had a white one. And he was very OEM, didn't want to modify it. I was all about modifying it. Eventually, over the course of the years, I ended up putting a ZC in that car for him. Helped him put the turbo in, I tuned it. The convertible CRX, you might have seen that. It was in the magazine article, one of the magazines that we were in. We helped him put the B16 in. Then Paul and I built the full turbo kit for that car and tuned it, so he went from being Mr. OEM, leave it stock, to every car he owned was modified. He had a wagon, with a supercharger kit on. I think I tuned that one too and built an exhaust for it. And I mean, Steve, that was 25 years ago. He was such a close friend. He was in my wedding in 2001. I'll put that picture up there, and if anybody recognizes the other people in the picture, of course the girl in the white dress is my wife. My friend Scott, it's his Type R. I had this crazy idea, said, hey, can we use a Type R in the wedding? My friend Scott has a turbo Type R that we helped him build, and she was like, yeah, let's do it. So turbo Type R. The other friend is Lee. The other guy is Roger. It was actually my boss when I first came to the States. He hired me. And anyway, the positive spin on it, if there is a positive spin. So this is the final take. I've recorded this 20 times and I couldn't keep it together. It's exactly a week ago today that we found the news of Steve passing. Now, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to, you don't come to this channel for that kind of advice, but do whatever it takes to keep yourself and those around you safe. I'm vaccinated, George is vaccinated. If it helps me 10%, it's better than nothing. If you stick a banana in your ear and it helps, I would do it, especially after losing one of my best friends. And it's still hard. It still seems like a dream that I should wake up from. And I know this is there's many people reached out and said the same thing. They've had loved ones pass, family members, close friends. It's not easy. It really isn't. I've spent so many fun memories with Steve working in the shop, going to Vegas, going to car shows, going to Nopi. I mean, this goes back 25 years. Some of my watchers are not even 25 years old. And you think of having a friend that's so close for 25 years and then suddenly they're gone. It really makes it real. It's kind of made that. I mean, I knew COVID was real, but I was one of those that said, it's just a flu. You know, I'm in pretty good shape. My friends around me, you know, it's like a flu. But when something like this happens, it really hits home, and you say, oh crap, we really need to do something. So do whatever it takes to keep yourself and those around you safe. Some people can't shed this virus, some people can. But sorry to bring the video down. It's kind of like therapy sometimes. You just got to get off your chest and share it with us, and it helps in some ways. So this is a memorial for Steve. See you in the next video.